All right, welcome everyone to a very special episode. I have invited Chuck Carpenter to join me today. He is a client of ours at the People Stack, and I've invited Chuck to tell his story so that you can learn what his story of career transformation has been and continues to be, to inspire you and to also know that, you know what, we're all human. We all go through challenges and we all find our ways to thrive through those challenges as well. And I know Chuck is a great example of that. So welcome, Chuck. Thank you for taking the time today to chat.
Yeah, and thanks for inviting me, Jen. It's always good to speak with you, and so it's good to do that once again. And hopefully, I can provide something of interest to anyone that cares to listen.
Oh, absolutely. I know that they're going to find your story interesting because your story is your story. And I know that you had some major wins as well as major challenges along the way. And that's always inspiring. So let's start with where you were. Where were you career wise before you started working with us? Like what wasn't working? What wasn't really kind of clicking for you?
Yeah. So at my previous company, I was an engineering manager with what I thought was a pretty good career track within the next year or two to become a director and kind of continue to grow within my organization, take on more challenges, with like some long-term goals of eventually starting my own business, creating and wanting to like create products and go down like a really um, riskier and more challenging path, or at least that's how it felt to me at the time. So I was like, these are some things that I really want to do in life, but for now, I'm an engineering manager here, and responsible for a few teams, and I'm just hoping to take that next step. So that's where I was. But one of the things that had me reach out to engage with you guys is that that path got quite a bit slow. There was some organizational changes with that previous company, and what I thought was going to be like, oh, in the next year I'm going to make that jump, and it's all like the next ladder, and it's incremental, and it's okay because I'm creating some improvements in my career. But reorg, and then it's sort of a clean slate, and now I have to start over and prove myself to a whole group of new people. And what seemed like a year started to become 2 or 3 years, and so we'll see. And I see the skill set for that as being quite different. And it made some changes in my life that required me to also have additional income. So now I was forced to doing a bunch of side work to bring in additional income for my family and for security's sake. And it was really just, I was taking everything day by day, and it was very burnt out because it was working a whole bunch of extra hours, usually at least at 20 hours or so per week, and just trying to like, I wake up and get through this day. That's really where I was mentally. And I felt like, I don't know, I'm not figuring this out. It's been months and months. I think I need someone from the outside to take a look and tell me what I need to do.
Yeah, yeah. And so I want to dig a little bit deeper there because and you were probably here as well, before you reached out for help. And I've certainly been there as well, where there's this period of, oh, but I can do it and I can figure this out. But then there's this, I want to reach out for help. And what I'm kind of hearing is kind of three things that were showing up. So what I want to invite people who are listening is to listen in for these patterns, or any of these patterns showing up for you as well. And so the first pattern was things were slowing down. Like you thought, or things were shifting in ways that you didn't want, right? Where it was like, oh, I thought I was going to be in line for this promotion, but oh, reorg and nope, right? So that just added some more chaos. And then there was also the additional work, right? The 20 hours or so of extra work per week. So it was a time thing. Like, oh wow, I don't have as much time and money as I used to. And so now I'm having to put in more energy. And then there's also the mental psychological aspect of it, which is feeling burnt out, feeling like, wow, I just want to wake up. I just want to get through the day. So which one of those for you would you say was like the worst, or were all three of them kind of weighing on you the most,
I would say
like equally?
the burnout was the greatest hindrance because I felt a bit trapped. Like, what I know I can do, I'm still committed at work and I'm still trying to, to show my value, to make sure my teams are doing well. Um, but, and then I have to have this mental shift into this other thing. And I just felt like I didn't really have time to really like make an assessment and figure it all out. I just felt like, okay, what I got to do is get through today and just keep plugging away, because what I can do is work more if I need to sort of plug those holes. But really, like the whole thing um, was just very overwhelming. So,
Yeah.
like, anytime I try to explore like other career transformation tools, it was like, okay, some of these things click for me, but I'll put a pin in that, and when I have some time, I'll come back to it. But then you have time, you're like, well, I have this side work that pays this amount, so this pays, and this is for later. This pays, this is for later. And I was
Yeah.
compartmentalizing things in that way a lot. And unfortunately, some of that would really bleed into family time too. Okay, I could spend an extra hour working, which does pay this amount, or I can spend some extra time with my kids, like, or for just a general example. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but I found myself sort of like really having to segment my life that way.
Hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned the idea of, okay, I just want to get through the day. Is that kind of how it felt like? That's what burnout felt like for you.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I
Mhm.
feel really burned out, but I don't have the ability to take a break. And so, and even it's funny because even during that time, I did take a family vacation, but it was a working vacation because we were on vacation, but I still had side work commitments. So it wasn't a full break. It wasn't a full mental break. There really was no reset there.
Mhm.
And so it was wake up and get through it.
Yeah. And you mentioned you looked for some, right, because you're resourceful, right? Like you're not just going to settle for this. So you were looking for some solutions, you were looking for some help, but initially that help didn't help, or that you didn't feel like you had the time or the energy to put into it.
Yeah, like the concepts would be understood, but in terms of like, okay, again, the time is money. Basically, time was money to me, and I would be reading or listening to these things like during a lunch break or some like natural like that didn't convert into work. I have this moment. I'm on a lunch break. Let's listen to a podcast. Oh, it kind
Okay.
of makes sense, but nothing was really triggering me to like, yes, I know that there's ABC choices, but nobody was looking at my situation. And so really,
Mm,
see how it's like it's more high level and nothing was about, oh, let's look at exactly what you're doing. Here's some advice to you.
yeah.
How do you make it all sort of work together? And so I would feel overwhelmed, not knowing when to start, and say, yeah, this makes sense to me. I get it, but I don't know where to start. And I don't have the time to like even figure that out yet.
Yeah, because you're already feeling overwhelmed. You're already feeling burnt out. And what's
Yeah.
funny about it is we think that getting more information will actually help us, but it ends up hurting us more if it's just this information overload on top of all of the other stress and strain that we're feeling as well. So I absolutely hear you on so one of the reasons why you decided it's time to get help and it's time to get help now was because of the burnout and all of the other effects it was having in your life. No right or wrong answers here, by the way, just kind of curious poking around, because for some people there's also, so that's kind of the why do I want to fix this so that I can kind of get unstuck. And then for there's often also a why in terms of what I want to create in the future. Was there a why, or even like a big why, like a big, mission that you had, like, okay, once I get unstuck from here, I want to move in this direction. And this is also why I want to invest in myself and get help. Was there a big why for you?
I would say one of those whys is that I didn't think it was sustainable too much longer over time. Like, what does that really mean? Who knows? But not to be overly dramatic, but just like I am feeling miserable. I can feel it, weighing on me in a mental and a physical way. And um it's important for me to have a happy life, or like, the idea of like working so hard for some kind of good, happy life, and having the ability of being pleasant around my family, and us enjoying each other's time together, and any of that. Like, for one, time is at a minimum, and two, I'm there and I'm exhausted, I'm not present, like, maybe grumpy, some people might say grumpy, all of those things. So it's just like,
Hmm.
everybody has periods of that, but it's just not sustainable forever. And so that was probably like one of the biggest impetus into like saying like, I have to find a way now.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was exploring ideas throughout this time. Your newsletter was one of those things over months of time, and it was something that I could act on that felt personalized, really, is what it was. It was like,
Yeah.
I can speak to someone who can actually like look at where I'm at, and maybe,
Okay.
and it's no obligation at that point. It's somebody like, for me to have this kind of easy conversation, and for them to say, okay, so let me ask you some hard questions, let me give you some specific advice, and see if that works. And I figured, why not?
Yeah. Yeah. And so it sounds like you had found us, found the people stack at some point, and then you were following the emails and following the newsletters for some time, and then
Hmm.
made the decision, you know what, now's the time to book a call and chat. And I believe your initial chat was with Rob.
It
Yeah,
was.
with Rob, love of my life, Rob Allen, my husband's business partner, right? Yeah, so I know it was an awesome conversation that the two of you had. Was there was there something, because you were following us for a little bit before you decided, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and book a call. Was there something that made you say, was there something that happened? Was there like a trigger moment that was like, yeah, now's the time?
So now's the time to engage, or now's the time to make the
Now's the time
call?
to book that call with them, to just, to schedule that strategy session and to see what's what, to see how they might be able to help.
Uh, I Again, that was really just I would explore tools. I'd spend the time to listen to a podcast, spend the time reading a book, when I can squeeze it in. So really, it felt like the same kind of thing. Okay, I'm ready to talk to a person,
Okay.
and it was, you can do this over a lunch break. I'm ready to talk to a person. So that was easy, because I I felt like that the newsletter was valuable, and it was telling me a lot of things were like, yeah, yeah, I do want those things. I'm not sure how to get them clearly. I thought I had a path to some of them, and some of that's not working out. I don't know. Maybe I can get some advice along that. And
Okay.
honestly, when I first kind of came into the call, I sort of thought it was going to tell me how to get the role that had slipped away. So that was like, I thought maybe that's it. I'm going to get that role, and I'm going to, fix that, because the job market is challenging and people get comfortable. And so, I thought like staying in my existing org, like most things are pretty good about it. It's comfortable. I'm known here. Yeah, that seems like, let's see if I can get some help to get there.
Yeah. So it sounds, you had already made that decision. I want to get help. So I'm open to any help that I find. I'm going to do that. And oh, let's have a chat, because it's absolutely worth the time
Right.
to do that. Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm curious, how did that, you said you went into the call with Rob with certain expectations, and then were those expectations met? Was it, how, maybe it was different. Maybe it was different than you expected, and that's what led you to say, okay, wow, yeah, yeah, this is something that I want to move forward with. It's not just a small thing that I want to do, it's actually a bigger shift that I want to make.
Right. Yeah. I think like one of the biggest trigger moments was like a really small and simple thing, though. It was funny because we were talking about the circumstances that, we've been talking about here, and just sort of what I wanted. And it was he was really straightforward. Rob is a very direct guy, and he was, I would explain kind of what I wanted, for my career. I was talking about a 5-year goal and beyond that, and some of that. And he's like, "Okay, so you're on the job market." I'm like, "Well, I mean, maybe not right now. I kind of want this." And he's like, "Yeah, but," asking me some questions about the organization and sort of like where that's at. It's okay. So if you want that, you're on the job market. And it was just him again. it really was great for me to just have someone looking at my situation and giving me like coaching that was so
Mhm.
directed exactly at me, and like knowing what, he knows about the market, and becoming, director or VP of engineering, those kinds of things. Like, right, if you want that kind of bigger jump, bigger responsibility, you're trying to build a business down the line, like, you're on the job market. It's very clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really like no nonsense, and that kind of helped. And I was like, it was the way that he was helped me shift my thinking about that made me feel like, okay, this is going to be a good thing. I can see, like, in this short call, we've been able to like do some sort of mental shifts right here to make me see ABC in a different way. And I'm gonna need more of that if I'm gonna actually be successful down this path. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so you started working with us. Obviously, we wouldn't be talking if you didn't make that decision,
Right.
right? Spoiler alert, right?
Yeah.
So, what I'm always curious about, so we'll talk about, what it was like when when you first started working with us, and then you'll kind of catch us up to where you are today, because it was about a year ago that we started working together. Um, what I'm curious about, and what I'm pretty sure that other people, especially if they haven't worked with a coach before, but even if they have, like what those first few weeks was like. And I actually want an honest assessment here, like, because it's not all sunshine and fairy tales, right? I've asked other clients about this before, and they're like, yeah, in the beginning it was a little uncomfortable. Like, not like we were going to ask you to like jump off of a bridge and, go skydiving or things like that. But what was the experience like for you in the very beginning working for us? And were there things that we asked you to do, that we requested of you, that we suggested, that might have felt a little bit uncomfortable?
I think one of the main things that you have to keep in mind when you start to move forward with a career coach, or with, anyone trying to help you, like, you're investing not only time, or not only money, but time. You got to realize that a lot of the time and a lot of the effort is on us, right? It's not a passive experience. You are going to walk through things, and you're going to ask us to do things that do take time, and all of us are like time, you know we're probably not time rich, and that's why we're going down this path, and we really want to change. But you asked us to make a hard look at, like, what is important, and what's going to actually like help us reach our goals. So prioritize this and make it a thing that you give the time for, and it does take time. So that was like one of the hurdles for me. And I also like kind of, and you're excited, and you're coming into this new thing, and you're learning a whole bunch of stuff, and you are spending a decent amount of time, and the first few weeks are about making very granular changes
Yeah.
that are going to like that you're going to build upon. So first you're going through these exercises that are like small things, building this little system about a little thing that you can like start to use in the first week or two. And you're like, wow, I'm spending a lot of time on, a meet, without giving away the
That's
um,
okay. You can talk a little bit.
yeah, yeah,
the
like
the
that.
secret sauce is in the coaching, and is in the, like you said,
Right,
it's in the individual attention. So yeah, like one of the first things that we have you guys do is like a meeting system, right?
right.
How do I do
And
better? How do I do better at meetings?
yes,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
How do I make
Hmm.
my meetings, whether I am whether I control the meetings or not, how do I make my meetings and my time more efficient? And looking at systems creation, right? Um, and I'm like, oh, I run tons of meetings, and I'm very strict about agendas and all of those things. And you're like, yes, but take a fresh look at that and say that everyone has room for improvement, right? And you kind of like look into that. So I would just say that like some of the more uncomfortable things for me is like understanding that I I'm not paying for you to fix this for me, because you can't, right? Like, you need to guide me on the path, but I need to do the work. And that was probably some of the things. And then I kind of akin it to the whole, in the Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi has him, wax the cars and paint the fence and paint the house, and you're like, I'm doing all these things. What does it mean? Because it means something for the bigger
Yes.
picture. It's these small things that teach you how to actually take advantage of the big stuff when you get there. So
Yep.
yeah, that
And
would be
then, yeah.
my whole like, all right, I'm doing these things and going through this system. all right. It was a, yeah, it was just that, like me
Got
and
it.
looking at my time use. But I
Yeah.
said, I've committed to this, and so I have to do it. This is the system. I'm gonna say I don't know better, because if I knew better, I wouldn't be here.
Mm. Yeah, being open. That's exactly what being coachable means. And then you get to win the tournament, right? Like, I love the Karate Kid metaphor, right? And we'll get to your version of winning the tournament in just a
Yeah.
minute. But what's really one of the things that you're mentioning, and that comes up again, and that's a theme for you, and I know for many people listening as well, as time is the time investment, right? That you really care about return on investment of your time, right? People often talk about return on investment in terms of the financial piece of it, and for sure we want the financial ROI, but for a lot of us, myself included, we want that time ROI as well. And so what's interesting is that for a lot of people, their resistance to investing in coaching, their resistance to getting help is, I don't have the time. And what's interesting for you was that's exactly where you were, right? You felt burnt out because of that lack of time. And the it's sort of like you have to flip on his head and say, well, that's actually exactly why I need help, is because I don't have time, and I invest that time so that I can get more of it. And that's exactly
Hmm.
the shift that you were able to make in order to do that. In order, if I want to make more time, if I don't want to feel burnt out anymore, I got to spend the time in the beginning and treat it like I'm the Karate Kid, and there's awesomeness on the other side of this.
Right.
So that's really, really cool. So let's get to the wins. So what were some of the initial wins? And so like we talk about all the time, like I say this often on our group coaching calls, is there's no such thing as a small win in the people stack world, because they all stack up, right? They all have a bigger meaning, even if it's just one conversation, that conversation has a bigger meaning to get you to, where it is that you want to go and what you want to create in your career. So what were some of the immediate career or life results that you got out of the program? Some of the wins.
Yeah. I mean, at some of the initial wins that had felt really good to me, I would say after the first few weeks, is actually like starting to face some goals that I had thrown, way ahead. So you never truly have to address them. Like for me, wanting to start my own thing at some point and get to a point where I can start to build products and actually like be responsible for the driver and putting things out into the world, and like kind of exploring that. I'd worked for a number of SaaS organizations and media organizations in the past too. So I like making things, and I, have been part of a group of many, and usually from on high, you get directives on kind of where that's going to go. So I can't wait to like get to a point where I get, a better seat at the table, and instead of climbing the uh, long road up a corporate ladder that may or may not give me that opportunity, like deciding that, like, wait a minute, I can decide this for myself, and actually feeling like that, if this is something I want in the short term, sooner than 5-10 years from now, that I have a big say so in that. And so, and like, right, because I have a lot of value to offer,
Mm.
regardless of the path that I take there. So like that's really cool, and like feeling like I didn't need to check off 20 boxes before I could even start thinking about it. So I'd say that's a,
Mm.
a big win.
Yeah, that
Small wins,
control, right? So
yeah,
like, so that control. So I want to make sure, like, I want to underline this because it really is huge, right? That sense of control and certainty in you're the creator in your career. And the other one that I heard was, and this can happen quickly too. It doesn't have to take 6 months. It doesn't have to take a year. That you are
right,
open to that. Like, all right, bring it on. It can happen in the next few weeks because I'm ready
right,
for it now. That's
yeah,
huge. Like, most people may not even get there ever. And so the
yeah,
fact that you are able to get there, it's that internal shift that creates the external stuff. So that's huge.
yeah. And we have a number of steps together through the process that like really make you start to look at and define the value that you can bring and that you have brought in the past. And I think like that is really strong and what helped position me for the opportunities that were to come.
Mhm.
And then for me, again, spoiler alert, I ended up leaving my previous organization, and on my way out the door, my new boss at the time was like, "Wow, this is a big loss. I'm really disappointed. I don't know if there's any way we could keep you, but I was planning to give you a lot more responsibility because I really
Mhm.
trusted you and I really liked what
Yeah.
you did," which
Yeah.
felt good, but it also felt like, well, shields were down. I'd already kind of decided to go. Thank you, but maybe you shouldn't have waited for that.
Yeah. So go ahead and catch us up. So what happened in terms of, work, being on the job market, et cetera?
Right. I wasn't really ever on the job market, which was the interesting thing. I was working, I was doing all the work to tee myself for that opportunity, and starting to explore kind of what what the roles look like. I was thinking, and Rob had suggested that I look at like a VP of engineering at a smaller organization, something in that realm, like seemed
Mhm.
like it might be a good fit. So I started to explore that in terms of like job postings and whatnot, but I hadn't actually dipped my toes into the water because I just wanted to know like what's that look like. Let me continue to like craft my story around that, and so an organization that I had worked with in the past and actually had done some of these side jobs with, and then someone that I had worked with previous to that. So they had a service business, a small software development consultancy, and he wanted to expand that and came to me with like I think he asked me a few times if I'd want to come on board, and in the past been very risk adverse, trying to protect my family and whatnot. And he's like, I
Mhm.
think now we're ready. We can make you an offer that makes you feel comfortable. We have some stability, and I think you have a lot to bring and trying to grow this business. So it I thought about it for a little bit, not that long, and then really like I said earlier, wait, I don't need to wait 5 or 10 years to start a business. Here's an opportunity to get involved with the business that is a service organization at the time, but we have mutually aligned goals with like growing this business to the point where we can start to develop internal tools and products. Like, this sounds like a great opportunity. It's right. It checks a lot of the boxes. It's not a VP of engineering at a small to medium sized org, but it also is like the ability to run an engineering organization. So win 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 along the way. So yeah, that's where I'm at now and what I've been doing
Cool.
for 8 months or so. And yeah, it's been challenging, it's been rewarding, it's been frustrating, it's been interesting, and all of the things you might expect. But I'm a lot happier. And the good part about it is I almost never work more than an 8-hour workday, and
Nice.
spend a ton more time with my family. And as you can see, I still get to be remote. And so that made this transition, obviously, in tougher times, not that hard for me personally in terms of my work day, but yeah, not
Yeah,
too bad.
yeah, and that's awesome. And when you told us about the offer, and like even still, like we were like, oh my God, this is so amazing. We're so happy for you, Chuck. And still like, like we're so happy for you, especially that it's working out and that you're thriving through the challenges. And what was really interesting for me, what was very cool was I remember you writing in, basically your mission statement of, this is what I want. And in terms of your salary goals, and this is the kind of company that I want to work for. And like you said, it didn't necessarily check all of the boxes, but the offer that you got was pretty in line with your stretch goals. You were like,
Right,
cool, right? So that kind of made it easier for you, right?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's hard to, because I knew immediately that like that stretch goal buys me time back. And one of
Mhm.
my major goals in the short term was I would like more of my time back. Kind of like you said, the ROI of things is that yes, there's a money bit, and that goes to a certain degree, but
Yeah.
what's really important is that time is not renewable. We can always like work a little harder and try and make a little more money, and go down these paths to do better
Mhm.
financially. But if you waste time in areas that you don't find valuable, well, you don't get that time back. So you got to continue to think about how you do it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's great that this was an offer that you were able to accept, and that the reason, part of the reason why you were willing to accept a little bit more risk, and it wasn't exactly what you were looking for, was because of that, the work life balance piece of it. that you're
Right.
able to have that now. Whereas before you were working two jobs and completely burn out. And now,
Yes.
like, there was a hummingbird, like you're sitting, it was so perfect. There was, I think that's a hummingbird feeder that you have
It
behind you,
is.
right?
Yes.
It's just, as you were telling the story about the offer, there was a little hummingbird that was coming, it was perfect, right? So now you're sitting in this peaceful place, physically, mentally, where, and it sounds like you're having a lot of fun as well, and really kind of rising up to the challenges.
Doing my best, but I have systems. So
Yes, you have systems now. So can you share like what's next for you? Like, you had mentioned, for example, at some point, perhaps wanting to start your own thing. What's on the horizon for you in the next few years, career wise, that you're shooting for?
yeah. So one major learning point in this is, as a service organization, you have a business development side to it, and that's been the whole challenge, as it's not something I've ever been used to. Of course, like looking into your own networks is an important part of that, and like seeing who you can work with, people you know that you want to work with, or people you know that are working on cool projects, and just trying to, get involved in those ways. So in the short term, we're continuing to scale our current business. So just do what we do now a lot are NVPs for new technology within organizations, small and large. You might be a startup and you don't have that much in-house talent yet, or maybe you're starting up without in-house technology, and you want some MVPs to be able to raise like pre-seed rounds, that kind of stuff. That's one thing that we do. So we'll just give you the entire like initial MVP to help you start to build and grow a new business. Or one of the things that we did in this past year was actually doing MVP for a complete like greenfield UI over an existing application that provided more of a streamlined interface to creating ad campaigns. So they had this like
Mm,
crazy complicated structure for creating like whatever your business rules were about seeing, A, B, or C. And then they realized that like after years of building a business, it was impossible to use. So we came in and just did a whole brand new one. So being
yeah,
able to create like brand new products is like it's one of the most exciting parts for me. We do a little bit of staff augmentation too, and that's okay. Keeps the lights on and helps us grow. So getting into the former more and actually developing some stuff in house. So as we grow, we'll start to have more in-house staff that we can start to
mm,
develop our own ideas with, and then create additional arms of the existing business with. So that's
yeah.
really like, so I get to eventually create a product business powered by my service business and do all new things. And so
That's
that's
so
that's
cool.
that's the goal over the next few years.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing for you because that's what you wanted, and that's what you're able to do. That's the doors of opportunity that open up for you by taking a little bit of risk and going a little bit outside of your comfort zone, maybe in some cases a lot, and look at all these
Right.
opportunities that you have. And it's so needed. I was smiling and nodding while you're talking about like building like a Facebook ad and like an app for a company. Like that's where we are. Like seriously, we may be talking with you soon because we've been in business for about 5 years now, and it's like everything's held together by silly string, and the silly string ain't cutting it anymore. So I've been
Right.
talking with Rob about Rob's COO, and it's like, okay, like he's like, really the best way to do this would be something custom. And so when we're ready, it's so awesome to know that we know someone like you who like that's actually what you do, right? Instead of like, okay, Facebook, Zap, Active Campaign, Zap, and then course creation software. It's like, oh my God, it's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's so cool to be able to build that kind of thing from scratch, like to talk with a business partner, to talk with a client, and to be able to say, okay, what do you need? Let's build it for you. There's so much
Right.
satisfaction that comes out of that.
Oh, there really is.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Well, It's been so great chatting with you, Chuck, to hear your story. Thank you so much for sharing. And we'll definitely have you back on again, maybe, maybe sometime soon, maybe sometime in the next months or whatever, just so that you can keep us updated. And yeah, thank you for sharing your story, because I know that it's going to be inspiring to folks who are listening, especially those who are stuck in burnout and time overwhelm right now, to know that there is a way out. And all it really takes is some resourcefulness, some willingness to stretch your comfort zone, some willingness to take a little bit of risk, and look at all the doors that open. So thank you so
Right.
much, Chuck.
Yeah, and thank you, Jen. It's nice to actually talk about it out loud sometimes because, everybody has a frustrating day, and when you get the ability to talk about and like think about the great things that are happening along the way, it makes those like single days so simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we will wrap things up. And thanks again, Chuck. It's been great talking.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Hang on one second.